Okay.
If it's less than 20 pages, it's light.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah, there you go.
Love the weather.
Brett says hello.
We see him up there.
There's no video yet. but you-
Okay, it is 9 o'clock and time for our Tuesday morning business meeting, and Kim Lawrence didn't show. Vince,
What?
gonna do the invocation?
Certainly.
You have the technology.
Yes. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, please bless this group of people that have come to witness the business of Bonner County. Let them speak clearly and thoughtfully, and let them have you in their heart as we discuss the business of the county and try and improve our county together. Thank you, Lord. Praise Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Follow me in pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Public comment. First on the list, we have none other than Wayne Martin. And I'm not gonna hold you to 3 minutes because there's not that many of us here today. And there's not that many online.
That was my first, my first request was going to be that you consider changing from 3 to 5. The second is that there are packets that I gave all of you, and I gave one to the secretary. Questions that I have, again, not that they need to be answered right now, but would like to see at some point in the future that it be looked at, and some of them being answered. Some of them in particular are what this county is looking at, their goals, its objectives are for the future. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Thank you. John Dupree.
John Dupree, for the record, first off, I want to thank you for what you do. I have just finished a 2-week journey into cow country. If you don't know, cow country stands for California, Oregon, and Washington. And I have observed many, many things. I think I've seen the future of this county. Oh no. Yeah, I know, it's terrible. I'm native to Northern California. And I went and visited several friends along the way to and from, and I saw a bunch of stuff that really bothered me. And I don't want this county to have that as our future here. I have to tell you, I got choked up when we had a prayer and a pledge of allegiance, because they don't do that kind of stuff in other places. I've been all over the world, and I tell you, this is the best place in the world to live, and I want to maintain it in that regard. I was staying with a friend of mine that's the battalion fire chief down in Fairfield. We went to the fire station to see his son. And next to that big fire station, there's a park, and a pile of people were camped out there. And I noticed some guy was leaning against a tree with his back, and then all of a sudden he stood up and pulled up his pants. That's a public safety issue. We don't want homelessness here. We don't want bad sanitation here. And the place is so crowded with vehicles and cars, and you know, a lot of folks up here are upset with those of us who came from cow country, and I don't blame you. But what I observed down there was, I stepped on the elevator at Hilton in Modesto, and I always ask people, where's home? One person said Modesto, 2 people said Mexico. I stopped at Carl's Jr. to get something in Kennewick, and nobody behind the counter spoke English. If you don't like the fact that cow people are coming here, it's going to go to a place where you're not even going to understand the language of people that are serving you. Do we really want that? Now, I found out that this board has approved an RV park on the Fairgrounds. Now, the Fairgrounds was paid for by people that lived here a long time ago at a rate that was at those rates, instead of having the law enforcement here. Well, you know, public safety and public health is a critical issue. And if we make decisions here to invite a bunch of people to come that might have the same kind of behavior from what I experienced in cow country versus law enforcement to protect the citizens of this county and take care of public health in this county, excuse me, I'm going to see here what I saw there. I drove through Spokane here, and it reminded me of California 15 years ago. It's moving in this direction. You folks have the power and the authority to stop that kind of world. And this vote that you had on the Fairgrounds, excuse me, please repent. Readdress that issue, because law enforcement is very important. We may have personality difficulties, so what? What's important is public safety and public health of the citizens that live here. Now, what was really fascinating, prior to the journey, and I rescheduled my journey, was to go to the town hall meeting that we had at the Blanchard Community Center that Asia organized. We voted the prior commissioner out because we didn't like that crony capitalism. And anybody who listens to those kind of people are in the pocket of those kind of people. And we, the people, do not support that kind of mentality. What Asia did there was amazing. It was standing room only. We had a full room of chairs, and we had to bring in more chairs. We ran out of chairs, and we had people all over hearing the elected government authorities sharing what they're doing with the work that they're doing. And they listen to the people feedback, because the elected officials are representing the people, we the people. And what Asia did was amazing. And the governor even sent somebody up from their office to observe what was happening. Well, what's happening here in this county, I think, is precursor of what's going to happen in America. It's going to spread along Idaho and in America, with the people standing up and being responsible part of what's happening. And if we don't like it, speak up. And please forgive us for saying things that might not please you, but you need to hear. You know, we are the taxpayer citizens of this county, and either we were born into it or we came here from elsewhere. But the point is that we love this place. Keep its beauty. This is a rural community. Don't let those who want to pay parking lots, pay over paradise and put up a parking lot. Please, the decisions you make, listen to the people, listen to your mom. By the way, I got to tell you, this room full of people that I've been observing love your mother. And I'm glad you're listening to her. The other people you listen to, well, not so much. All right? Hey, oh, come on in. We have a few chairs. Thank you for allowing me to share. And God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Hutchins.
All right. Mr. Hutchins, for the record, I'd like everybody watching and everybody who watches this video and you guys all note how much money has been spent on this silly little library election. We're talking library board election. Does anybody have an idea or a concept of why it's worth so much money to the left-leaning folks that want to have the pornography in the library? Why it's worth so much money to them to spend it on this little election? Why is the library so important to these guys? I mean, you guys really should think about that a lot, because if you just drive around town and look at all the signs out and look at all the people waving signs for this, for the groomer, pedophile, supporter person that they're trying to elect back into the library board. I mean, it's astounding to me. I can't believe these people will go through that much trouble and spend that much money for a library position. But if they're doing it, there's a reason for it, okay? They're not doing it for the fun of it. They're just not blowing money for the hell of it, okay? So keep that in mind. Who's been watching the Title 42 expire and everybody pouring across the border in Mexico? Okay, we've all been seeing that. And there's a similar thing happening in the Canadian border, and everybody here needs to watch out for it. There's not like there's Hispanic people coming across the Canadian border. Does anybody know the nationality of most of the people coming across the Canadian border? Anybody? It's Chinese people.
Yeah, they're not Canadians.
They're not Canadians, they're Chinese. There's Chinese people coming across the Canadian border. There's also a lot of Chinese people coming across the Mexican border. There's bases that the Chinese have down in the Panama area where they actually fly people from China over to Panama, and then they help them go up north to our border. And they're not like families with little kids and stuff. We're talking military-age males are flying from China to Panama and then walking up to the U.S. border. If anybody has a reason why they're doing that, I'd love to hear it. And they're also coming down from Canada. So same kind of thing, not families, not little kids, not moms, not running away from, Chinese Communist government. They're military-age males coming across the border in Mexico, from Mexico and from Canada. So you should keep your eyes open. I mean, I've seen some of them in Walmart. A couple of Chinese guys look, a lot younger than me, 25, 30-ish guys, look perfectly healthy, don't speak any English, walking around Walmart the other day. No idea what they're doing here, okay? It's concerning to me. Does anybody here give to the Red Cross? Okay, the Red Cross is supporting and providing maps and documentation to help these people, and they even give them phone numbers of places to call if they get caught and tell them what to say to make sure that they get up here. So the Red Cross is doing that with your donations to the Red Cross. They're financing this stuff. So stop giving money to the Red Cross if you care about our country. The National Guard is down at the border in Mexico. I don't know if they're doing the same thing up here, but the National Guard is down at the border in Mexico, in Texas specifically, and not Texas National Guard. They have National Guard from other states. They're sending them to Texas because the Texas guys probably won't do it. They're sending National Guard from Georgia and Missouri and stuff down to Texas, and these guys are helping the Mexicans across the border, or the immigrants, whoever these people are. They're helping them across the border. There was a guy that had a fence. He spent a bunch of money putting a fence up with a locked gate. The National Guard trespassed on his property, opened his gate, and let the people through, put them on a bus, and shipped them out into who knows where. So these are our own citizens, what's supposed to be our military protecting us, committing treason. It's just treason. Okay? Last thing, I hope, everybody heard Grant's resigning, so I hope everybody says a prayer for Grant. I hope he's okay. I hope everything goes okay with him, and I wish him the best. Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have anybody online lit up? Not yet.
I just have a question.
Name for the record.
Who are you?
Who am I? I am your worst nightmare. Church of Ollie for the record. And by the way, we don't call it cow country, we call it the occupied zone. Y'all have these great packets in preparation for these meetings. How can the public get a copy of those packets?
So last meeting, remember I put that on the agenda so that the available documents, they're going to start uploading those online for you, for the ones that you can have, not the executive session ones.
Okay, would they be like on the front page with the calendar stuff?
Yes, and Jessie was on vacation. She came back today, but that was something that we already voted on to allow access so that you guys can follow along with what we're doing.
Okay, I missed last week's meeting, so.
Well, I did what I said I was going to do. I put it on the agenda. So
Yeah,
we did
I
vote
know,
on it.
you did, you did.
Nope.
You
and-
can talk to Brett about missing these meetings, I mean, it's not my fault.
No, so she's gonna put that together because we had discussed that there are people that send us a records request for those documents, and we do give it to the people that are asking. We might as well just put it online so that everybody can have access to it without us having to spend time on records request. So
Excellent, thank
it'll go
you.
online.
A lot of it possibly will be redacted because it has to do with personnel,
Oh, I'm not
infrastructure
worried about
stuff,
that kind
court
of stuff, I'm
stuff.
worried about, there's a
Yeah.
whole lot of other stuff.
Everything in executive session will be removed. It'll be it's
Like I
just the
said,
stuff
it's
that
not
you're
that stuff, it's in general, I walk in and I see something on the agenda, it's like, what the heck is this nonsense? So how do I know it's not nonsense if I don't see the packet, right?
Gotcha.
So there you go. It's easy. Thank you.
All right. Next. David, how are you?
Good.
Name for the record.
David Mann for the record. Yeah, this is mild compared. Check around me, make sure everything's okay here. At the last board meeting, I suggested that neighbors should be notified of.
You weren't trying to give me the agenda, are you? Because I have one. Thank you.
In fact, you might need two.
I appreciate your courtesy.
That means we'd have to go through it twice.
Sorry about that. Getting in front of one of these things scrambles my brain, which is already scrambled. Anyway, I referenced my own experience with neighbors, my neighbors at MLD, that I learned about only by chance. And because of my perception of code violations by the county, I believe that public oversight in MLDs and probably other land use actions is a necessity to establish trust in county government. I was surprised by the immediate objection to my idea on the basis of growing government. Skip that other line. Several thoughts came to mind, and a couple more have come to mind since that meeting. The first thing that popped into my head at that meeting was, heck, if we're concerned about growing government, why are we spending $25,000 in survey fees and putting a campground in what would be the most expensive place that I can think of at the Fairgrounds to maintain over time? And it's going to require Fairgrounds personnel to either give up some of what they're already doing so that they can maintain the campground, or we're going to end up hiring somebody new to help maintain the campground. I'm also unclear about the dollar figures that were presented. Were those expected net or gross income? And in essence then, based on those questions, will the campground grow government? The second thing that came to mind was, why in the world isn't the process of identifying and sending letters to neighbors already automated? It should be a process of clicking on a list of things that county employees can do, entering an address and clicking, and it's done. So I suspect that your IT department can probably automate that for you. I hope they can. When I went to the planning department to find out about how much time it would take to actually do that task, for just a neighborhood look, it took about, she said it would take about 15 minutes to put that information together. So if you had 100 MLEs, yeah, obviously that would take some time. But if IT really should be able to give you an automated process that will let you do that process in just a few minutes rather than 10 or 15. And the last idea that came into mind, I believe the county already does this with docs. Why does the county have to be responsible for the expense of the notifications? Notification expenses could be passed on to the developer as part of the application process. The developer has access to the GIS system and can locate neighbors and their addresses. The application could include a checkbox for the developer to indicate that neighbors within certain radius have been noticed. Failure to notify could result in application reviews and civil penalties. This would grow government by about one checkbox as an option. That's all.
So one thing I'll say is on our planning website now, there's a link there for MLDs, so you can see the MLDs that have been requested. So I know there's other opportunity for improving that system, but that one is there now.
Have we considered requiring names that identify where they are? So that
It's part of the application. So if you go on that planning site and click on that, you'll see the name and all of the what is filed. So it'll say the applicant. So you'll be able to see that part.
Thank you.
Yes.
Next.
Forgot one thing on my list. Spencer Hutchings again. Do you guys know about FSP? The Federal Surplus Program Idaho has?
Yes.
You know about it? Okay.
Mhm.
All right, do we use it? Does Bonner County utilize it?
we recently purchased a street sweeper. I'm not sure if it is that program, but we did purchase a federal surplus, which we are using, that saved us a couple $100,000.
Cool. Yeah, because when I go through the list of Idaho's, I think Idaho's authorized by the Constitution to have 24 or 27 different departments in the entire state. And we have something like, according to their own website, 180 agencies. That was just one of the ones I ran across and wondered if you guys knew about it and were utilizing it. So I'm glad you're using it. Cool.
So I have a thought, since there's no more questions, as a discussion time. Oftentimes, the community is talking about Fish and Game and what their involvement is. Would you guys be interested in having Fish and Game come to some of the meetings during this open session to give a report, and then you could ask them questions? Tentatively, I kind of identified the 13th because I thought the answer would be yes, but I wanted to kind of give a thought, because it's not really a business item, because it's just more of an information opportunity. Is that something you think there would be an interest in our group? So I will say yes to the 13th during our meeting. Or are you raising your hand, or are you saying yes?
I'm raising my hand.
We agree, we want it.
Yeah, no,
No.
I have a question.
Spencer has a disclaimer.
Can we get the guy up here that introduced the turkeys and also the guy that introduced the
Yeah,
Just, they are satisfied.
we'll have a raffle at who gets to take care of that issue.
Don't get personal about this room, okay?
No, I mean the turkey. I mean, I think we should have like we should ask him if we can have like a.
The sheriff should have papers on both of them guys.
Will you be in attendance on the 13th? Because I can pick a different date.
I'll be here.
Okay. So we'll move forward with the 13th. They're agreeing to do like maybe a once a month check-in with Bonner County and answer some questions that might be helpful for our community. So the 13th will be the first time that they'll come up and do that. And if everybody thinks that might be a good idea, and then we can reassess later and maybe use it as an opportunity, because sometimes we don't have a lot of questions, for other groups within the community to come in during this time to kind of have a dialogue with the community and the commissioners. So that was my question answer.
So a regular guest speaker would be awesome.
There you go. Okay.
Anybody online? Oh, sure.
I was just wondering if planning, what they're doing, they have to answer questions.
I don't see why not. I think the more that, for my view, the more that we open up the county to be responsive to what the community wants, the better we'll be able to accept kind of the decisions, because we're part of it as people. So I will definitely ask planning if they would come and say what's going on, especially as we move towards more development in our county. So I can't guarantee that they'll be willing, but I can definitely say I'll ask and give a response to what their answer is.
Can we just put all the departments on like a rotation and invite them on a regular basis?
Anybody else have any, I don't see a problem with it, but it's one of the ideas of, does any commissioner have an issue with inviting the different departments to give information?
No, I don't have a problem with that.
I'm curious how that would work.
It'd be a time thing.
The departments already have regularly scheduled public meetings that exist. So if we're gonna do that, the concern is for myself, this is meant for public comment. And if we're gonna have the departments give an update, that should be something that would be agendized. And this is a process that already exists. So I'm open to it, but it's difficult because we don't know how many people are going to want to speak depending upon what the agenda is. Sometimes we make people happier than others, and sometimes we make them a little bit less discontented than others.
You could do it by saying, for example, we're going to invite the clerk, and then he's here available to answer questions of the public. So it meets the expectation of the public being able to interact with the county.
And then being agendized on your menu, or on your, I'm sorry, the agenda on your menu.
Close enough.
Them being agendized and coming to give reports or to ask things to you guys is a whole different thing than them just happen to be in the room so that they can say, hey, I'm so-and-so from such and such department, if anybody has a question. I think that's a totally different thing. And I think if we had one particular time where the whole community could show up and ask questions, that would be, that's a regular thing. I think that's going to be beneficial to everybody. We all know that we can show up on this particular day and, we can ask questions or say things. I I think that's really beneficial to the community. I think it builds community, and I think it helps us gain an understanding of what you guys do and what the rest of the county government does. And I think it'll build relationships and help things.
I think there's some things about certain departments that we just, as a community, don't fully know. Recording is a great example. We get a lot of concerns from community members about how we go about recording, but when you hear that we have absolutely no option, that it's at the state level that dictates what we do, it changes how we as people would respond to issues and concerns. But we would have to be able to get that information out to people and if I'm asking that question, why not let everybody hear the answer versus repeating the question over and over to one department? So we could try it.
I totally get your statement as far as they have public.
Can you go to the microphone so these people can hear you online?
Do they really want to hear me?
That's the beauty of
Well,
the
this way it
meeting.
can be
is
on the
it's-
Then it can be on there, okay. Like I said, I totally
Name?
get Luke's statement. What, name again? You don't know me?
The recorder can't tell who you are by looking.
Oh, well, it's Sherry DeValley for the record, okay? Anyway, as I was saying, I get what you're saying about a lot of other public meetings, and they're doing their updates then, but not every department does public meetings. There's a lot of departments that don't. And the only time they see them is when they come in here and ask for money. You know, things like that. Such as Clarissa's got some great stuff going in her office. I spent an hour with her a couple of weeks ago, and she just totally opened my eyes and was fascinating. You know, she would be great to come in and do talk about what she's doing over there and how to help a lot of the people in the county. That's what we talked about, how to help them, you know, because they're having a lot of troubles. It's like there's 28, I think we said, homes that are having trouble with their taxes, and they're going to end up losing their homes, and this is how the county can help them. Okay, so we had that discussion, and it would be awesome and I think really beneficial. And then there's other departments, Road and Bridge, explaining why everybody's so mad at them. I mean, it's not their fault, you know. Yeah. I mean, they do great stuff, but when nobody knows who it is to listen to, then, you know. So I think that's a great idea. You know, I love it, and I'm totally supportive.
Sounds good.
Molly McCann for the record. As Luke pointed out, some of those departments do have regularly scheduled update meetings, but they're listed on the website as special meetings, and they're not technically special meetings, because as we know, special meetings are just added within 24, 48 hours. And so it'd be very cool if those departments who do have regularly scheduled meetings are listed on the calendar as regularly scheduled. So right now, you go to the website and it says special meeting.
That's partially due to state code, and this is the business meeting. I'm open to having people schedule I don't know if people are aware of this, but occasionally elected officials in Bonner County have disagreements. And I'm just reading from code right here. Because today and the Board of County Commissioners is by statute required to have meetings. This is a statutory meeting. Now, I can speak for Sheriff Wheeler, but I'm pretty sure that he is very capable of speaking for himself. And I don't have any intention of speaking for the clerk, the treasurer, the assessor, in scheduling their time. These are conversations that need to be had before the board starts. We need to ask respectfully for those offices to come. But here's the purpose according to our ordinance. The purpose of the regular business meeting is for the Board of County Commissioners to conduct the business of Bonner County publicly. Regular business meetings do not constitute public hearings wherein the public has the right to be heard on every agendized item. But it does make a lot of sense that we figure out some way to be able to add some informational value if the Tuesday meeting is the main way. And it does make sense because this is the one that we are able to record, because there are costs associated with everything. And like Mr. Mann said, growing government is not in the best interest of the taxpayer.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dmitry Borisov for the record. I have a question for the Commissioners that probably would be more addressed towards Luke, you, because as you guys are aware, the EMS service in the state is not considered to be an essential service. Only fire and police are essential services in the state of Idaho. So later in the session, Idaho government is gonna try to take up the issue, and there has been a surveyor going from the state, meeting with the agencies and the county commissioners, collecting information, trying to come up with kind of an advisory or a plan for state, basically. And I'd like to know where Association of Commissioners standing on that, on that subject, because I guess you look in that association of the county commissioners for the state, I'm assuming, right? So where does this commission state? What's the position? Do they would like for EMS to be essential service in Idaho, and where are commissioners in Bonner County standing on that issue too?
I will speak for myself. And I remember the gentleman's call sign, which is Bison 6, because he's a retired captain out of the Army. The state is looking at considering EMS being an essential service. But there is nothing that government touches that does not come with a financial cost. And Bonner County has a robust EMS service. And so part of my conversation with the gentleman who the state has hired to work with the legislature, because there is a bill and this process that is being worked toward, is that I was open to the conversation, but I am not interested in reducing the services for Bonner County residents so that we can support other counties. Bonner County, in the early 2000s, made a decision to fund an excellent EMS service. And I believe that that's what we should carry forward. The main emphasis or impetus for this bill is that there are a large number of counties. I'm going to pick on Idaho County. Idaho County is massive with a very small population base. And it's very difficult. Another county that's challenging is Boundary County. Boundary County is huge with 12,000 people, and they have one ambulance service. They have put up a levy to fund their service, and their taxpayers made the decision to vote that down. And so they remain with minimal services. In a county like Bonner, where as a group, we chose to have robust services to meet the needs of our citizens, it's not a one-size-fits-all across the 44 counties of Idaho. So I'm going to wait and see, and this is what I also told the gentleman who was the advisor. I'm in a wait-and-see mode, but the biggest thing that I want is for the Bonner County taxpayers to have to pay more and receive less services. I don't think that's in the best interest of the taxpayer.
That is agreeable. Yeah, I just want to know where the whole group stands.
It's going to, well, I can't speak for the whole group, but until the legislature they're going to receive their report, and I believe that Representative Sauter was on that commission. Until that report is received by the legislature, I'm merely in a wait and see mode. And the biggest one for me is do no harm.
Thank you.
So that's my perspective.
Thank you. Anybody else? Hi, Sarah. Name for the record.
Cheryl Messer for the record. I would like to encourage you guys to encourage planning committee to have the committees for the sub-area comp plans at their meetings so they can be a counsel to them. And one of the reasons is, as having not paid attention until the last couple years and coming to the planning committee, I started looking at agriculture, of course, as it's disappearing, and found some interesting things that we were being held up against, whether it was prime ag or not. And I just ran across another piece of information. So this is from the natural resources component that is currently in place, was adopted on 5/8/2003. And it says prime farmland, and I'm going to skip to the end of the paragraph, the slope is no more than 6%. So that's in one place under the natural resources component. And I went to the committee meeting, or the natural resources component meeting about a week ago, but there wasn't a place for public comment, so I couldn't bring this up. But in another place where you have the land use component, which is from 12/13/2005, which was after the sub-area committees had gotten together, you've got the difference between prime forest ag land, which is greater than or equal to 20 acres. The matrix shows it's had the greatest differences in transportation. You can have a variability of transportation, roads, and it was 0 to 30%. The 10-acre ag forest land, 10 to 20 acres, was transportation. It was limited to 3 or 4 instead of 2 to 4, and it was greater than or equal to 30%. And then for some reason, which I haven't been able to run down, what we're currently acting under, the Bonner County Code 12322 B1 and 2, 1, the Ag Forest 20 in all areas designated as prime ag forest land in the comprehensive plan. The Ag Forest 20 zone is also appropriate in areas designated ag forest land in the comprehensive plan that also feature A is the prime agricultural soils, B are characterized by agricultural or forestry uses, and C is areas where one or the more of the following apply. Limited services, which we don't have too much of in this county anymore, characterized by slopes greater than 30%. And to me, if you would invite some of the farmers to this or the sub-area committees, they would tell you, well, even if you did your garden at 30% grade, you would see that water erodes, water takes all the nutrients to the bottom, doesn't stay wet, doesn't work great for farmland. So, and it says where access may be absent or limited to the substandard road systems, which we don't have that many of anymore, or where large tracts of land may be devoted to ag forest production. And this is what we've been held up against. They flipped the 10s and 20s, the designation of 10s and 20s from the matrix and from the what's still existing natural resources component that says it should be, the slope is no more than 6%. So I'd really like you guys to encourage them to find out from the sub-area committee people what they intended. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl.
No more questions?
Boy, what an unruly group today.
I know.
It's hard to get a word out of them.
Round 2.
Round 2. I'll try to keep it brief.
And for the record, they're really insistent on that.
No kidding. I'm John Dupree for the record, and first off, I want to congratulate you guys for being commissioners. I mean, male, female. Okay, because you have a massive responsibility. You have the authority to make decisions that impact all of us. And the suggestion about having an open forum talk with representatives of the different departments, actually, we do have on the agenda already people making suggestions for funding. So why not, when they get up to share for the funding they need for their job, just dedicate 30 seconds, 90 seconds to give us an update as to what they're doing with the money that you're allocating to them. And that is a responsibility response that I think could be helpful. So thank you all. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Somebody want to sing a song? Daryl's a good singer. He does an awesome national anthem.
So we're just going to run the clock down till 10
Hard to
o'clock
wedge a
apparently.
word in edgewise here, I'll tell you. All right.
You can be late.
At 9:38, and we will call a recess and reconvene at 10 o'clock. So now
Are you going to amend the strike? Lewis asked to have that one.
Okay. He didn't tell me, so I didn't know that. So we're just crossing that one off.
Yes, so we just need to amend to strike that one at this time.
25 seconds and counting. Have a drink, you'll feel better.
Can't hear you.
Have a drink, you'll feel better.
I could. I have a Steve from Rockford Cup in my car with hot coffee.
Scott, I saw you at the dump. I was pulling out, you were pulling in. Subaru with the wagon?
Driving,
Subaru, I don't know.
It is 10 o'clock and we are back out of recess, and I will entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
All right, we're going to motion to amend the agenda to remove the prosecutor's item. He's requested that it be taken off the agenda for today.
I second the motion.
Roll call vote?
Yes?
Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I motion that we approve the agenda as amended.
I second the motion.
Roll call vote?
Yes?
Yes?
Yes. All right. District 2 Commissioner Report.
All right, hopefully everybody voted today. Today is our vote day. Everybody in Bonner County should have had something to vote on. Tonight is also the Bonner County Republican meeting at 6:30. It is also Police Week, so at Sheriff's Office, 5 p.m., we'll be celebrating our people that put themselves in the line of fire. In Idaho State as a whole, we have had over 500 police officers who have lost their lives while in the line of duty. This is a great opportunity for us as residents who get to go home feeling safer at night because they risk their lives to celebrate what it is that an officer does. So please show your respect for those officers today if you have time. May 17th, community leaders, that's tomorrow, will be meeting to discuss fentanyl at the Connexcue Community Center. If you have a desire to hear more about that, it's a great opportunity to educate yourselves and family regarding the fentanyl. I did notice that Sheriff, actually, you guys arrested a lady who was distributing fentanyl in Bonner County. So we need to make sure we're aware and what our options are. So thank you for that service. May 20th, your last day to sign up for Clean Up Our Blanchard Cemetery. Pine cones are free, again, 9:30 on the 20th. May 25th, I will be meeting with Panhandle Health to go over some improvement process. And I will say that out of our town hall in Blanchard, a lot of people actually contacted the appropriate community members to help with issues and concerns, to where I think it's about 10 people contacted Panhandle Health to try to get some questions answered. And Panhandle Health was very excited to see the increase in community involvement and the ability to explain their process and procedure before we get into a spot where people are more frustrated. So thank you to everybody that participated and took each speaker up on the option to contact them directly. June 15th is going to be our Old Town update, post our road review. We've actually had great success in that area of addressing their issues and concerns. Thank you to the road and bridge team, as well as they addressed our concern on our Poirier Loop Road in Blanchard. So the month of June, I will be spending in Priest River. I'm aware of those issues and concerns. So that'll be the focus area to meet with community members and leaders to go over issues and concerns in Priest River. If you have any questions or ideas that you want me to focus on, send me an email. It's the best, most expeditious way so that I can address issues and concerns, but we'll focus on Priest River. Any questions for me on any projects you have seen or have follow-up from our town hall? All right, we're good then. That's it for District 2.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. District 3.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On Thursday of last week, I attended the Ponderay Economic Partnership, and there was a presentation from Sam Wolkenhauer, who continued to talk about, and he is an economist with the Idaho Department of Commerce, I believe, and he talked about the demographics of Idaho as they are and trends. And we are growing in Bonner County. However, the band of growth is approximately in the ages of 55 through 70. People that are 25 through 40 are leaving. So what does that look like going forward? How do we address that? And that was one of the drivers of that. And housing happened to be a big issue. So if anybody has a solution for the cost of dirt and the willingness of people to move here, please let us know. Yesterday, we received an initial budget presentation from Panhandle Health District. And included in that budget presentation were some startling statistics that we all need to be aware of as we, as a county, have just entered into our budget season. So Bonner County grew by 4% in our population last year. We had almost 2,000 people decide to share our fair county. So our budget is allowed to grow 3%. So we are growing faster than our budget, and that is without even taking into account inflation. Additionally, the director of Panhandle Health District brought forward that the increase in their insurance premiums was approximately 18%. That is a huge amount of money. This morning, I called my previous employer, and their increase in insurance was approximately 7%, which is still significantly greater than the 3% that we are allowed to grow, which also doesn't take into account that we have 4% greater growth of humans that are going to be traveling our roads, maybe committing crimes if they drive like some of us do occasionally, recreating on our rivers and utilizing our campgrounds. So growth is both a blessing and a challenge that we are stuck with and blessed by, that people choose to want to live here. On Saturday, I attended the Bonner County Homeless Transitions Little Black Dress event. We do have a significant
I would have liked to seen that. That would have been an interesting shot. Now I'm having this.
I was not in the black dress, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, glad you cleared that up.
Thank you for that horror show.
Hey, you said it, not me.
It's the name of the event. I'm glad I could provide a little humor. But we do have a significant number of folks that are struggling with housing, and it was nice to see the community coming together to work to create a non-governmental solution to provide support to our neighbors. After we get done today, I am driving out to the Kokolala Bible Camp, where I will do what I'm told for the elections today, and then I will be coming back and working if Clerk Rosedale has anything useful for me to do. I am a minion, and I look forward to just seeing how this process works as a governmental nerd. We've got some stuff coming forward on the Fairgrounds today, and in response, my family camped on that area. So it's not just out of town people that camped in that area. And the 4-H'ers, the horse campers, they have been camping there for decades. They have already scheduling, and this is something that is going on. There is a super great event that is going on in Bonner County this Friday in Priest River. The first of its kind Smithsonian exhibit will be at 6 to 9. They are shutting down, they being the city of Priest River, and the library there is hosting this exhibit. And it's from 6 to 9. I would encourage everybody to go if no one has seen the incredible West Bonner County Library. It's very nice. Go spend some money, bring your kids, check out the Smithsonian exhibit, and vote. And if you haven't voted or know someone who hasn't voted, tell them to vote. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Can I comment on something that was said?
Go ahead. As long as you're friendly about it.
Well, I will try to be friendly. I'm not promising anything, but I'll try. Spencer Hutchings for the record. As far as taxes and increases in people being in the county, when is the county going to try and move towards zero-based budgeting? I mean, we really as a county need to, it's incredible how much money you find when you force departments to do zero-based budgeting. So I would highly encourage the county to consider that, and you'd be amazed at how much money you will find. The second thing, hospitals, and having been a person who built hospitals for a living, I can tell you right now that the 18% increase in the insurance fees for hospital care is probably 90% grift. I have been in board meetings where at the end of the year, the not-for-profit hospital decided how much money they were going to make at the end of the year, and we stuck all that money into a big account, and we paid it off to the doctors so that we didn't make any money. So it looked like we didn't make money to the people who were paying us insurance, paying for our insurance. All the hospital expenses, pretty much every hospital I've ever seen, there's a huge amount of grift in that, huge amount. So when you see insurance costs going up, just remember those insurance costs are paying for those Porsches in the parking lot.
Thank you, Spence. Okay. Consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, based on the information before us, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second the motion.
All right, roll call vote.
Commissioner Arnold?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Bradshaw?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Rosedale. Oh, we're having Nancy.
Nancy Twynham, Comptroller with the Clerk's Office for the record. I have for you action item number 1 regarding fiscal year 23 claims batch number 16 in the amount of $947,925.14 in demands in batch 16, $476,968.72, totaling $1,424,893.86.
I move to approve payment of the FY23 claims and demands in batch number 16 totaling $1,424,893.86.
I second the motion.
Roll call vote.
Commissioner Arnold?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Bradshaw?
Yes, ma'am.
I have also item number 2 regarding fiscal year 23 EMS claims batch number 16 for $22,171.17 and demands in batch 16 for $6,144.77, totaling $28,315.94.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve payment of the fiscal year 23 EMS claims in batch number 16 totaling $28,315.94.
I second the motion.
Roll call vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Nancy. Public Defender, how are you today?
Doing good, Mr. Chairman. How are you?
Good.
Good morning, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen. Luke Hagelberg, Bonner County Public Defender's Office. This morning, for your consideration, I have the FY 2024 Indigent Defense Financial Assistance Compliance Proposal and Application for your consideration. Thank you.
That's all you wanted to say?
Well, for those wanting more information, this is essentially how we fund our office through the Public Defense Commission based in Boise. We submit our expenditures, the number of clients we represent, all the work we do. We put all that together in an application. We submit it to the PDC. They look it over. Mr. Rosedale looks it over. Commissioners look it over, and then you hopefully approve it, at which point we get funding for our office for the upcoming fiscal year. So this is that application.
Sounds good. Based on the information before us, I move to approve the fiscal year 2024 Indigent Defense Financial Assistance Compliance Proposal and Application.
I second the motion.
Roll call vote.
Oh, we have a motion and a second?
Can we hear how many people we're defending and what it's costing? Is that part of this?
This is just the budget portion of it, so.
Right, how much is the budget?
He could answer that if he knew the answer to it.
So our local share projected for fiscal year 2024 is 1.2 million, approximately.
Okay, and the county pays that or the state pays that?
That comes from the PDC. This is money we are requesting from the PDC that is based primarily on state funding from the general fund.
And is that an increase or decrease from last year?
So they were allowed to ask for up to a 15% increase. We are approximately budgeting, based on what I'm looking at from last year, we're looking at a little bit less. Last year, the value was 1.3 million. So if I'm reading this right, we're actually going down a little bit as far as cost goes.
Good, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Spencer.
Mr. Hagelberg, well, how much has this been affected by the new public defense bill?
This is the same formula we have used for the past few years. This is essentially the last year, the way I understand it, that I'm coming to you as commissioners asking for money. So this is the same procedure as before. Next year, FY 2025, is when I think we're going to see some serious changes, and I don't think I'll be here in my current capacity or asking the county for this application. We'll be working directly, I think, with the State Public Defender's Office.
So everybody knows, the reason why he won't be here is because it will just be a different agency. The funding source will be from a different bucket. Hopefully, he's not going anywhere. He'll still be the public defender, if I'm understanding that correctly.
Perhaps the local head of the office, but I will report not to the commissioners, but to the state public defender. So it'll kind of relieve the county of financial burden and liability. That's the understanding, and I'll answer directly to the state.
But you'll still be in Bonner County.
Of course.
Oh, very good, very
Yep,
good.
you're stuck with me.
God bless America.
Which should take away some of the indigestion and heartburn of your tax dollars and local tax dollars having to prosecute the person and defend the person. Makes perfect sense, right?
Yeah. It's all taxpayer money.
So, but everybody's entitled to a fair trial and good representation. So, roll call vote?
Commissioner Almond?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Bradshaw?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, our treasurer.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, everyone. Clarissa Coster, Bonner County Treasurer for the record. My first item on the agenda is I am requesting that the Board of County Commissioners accept the Treasurer Auditor Joint Quarterly Reports for the second quarter ending 3/31/2023 for both Bonner County and EMS. The ending balance for Bonner County is $41,921,041.14. The ending balance for EMS is $3,476,044.20.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept both the Bonner County and EMS Treasurer Auditor Joint Quarterly Reports for the second quarter ending 3/31/2023.
I second the motion.
Roll call vote?
Commissioner Almond?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Bradshaw?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Before she goes to the second one, are we going to allow people to comment after we first and second it?
We can't. We can.
Okay.
Of course, you have to be careful how you ask the treasurer. She may recall where you're at on your taxes and go, yeah, you're coming up on 3 years. I mean, just
Well,
to know.
I think people might have questions of the second one, and I don't want to go too fast into the voting part.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the second item on the agenda is with the growth that has taken place in Bonner County, the Treasurer's Office has reached a point where we are unable to remain efficient and timely in the processing of tax payments during the December and June collections. The Treasurer's Office has had the same number of employees for the past 35 years. This is 6 employees, and continues to work hard to keep budget costs low. Our request is to move in a direction to utilize technology in assisting us with the December and June collections rather than requesting an increase in staff, which is not the most cost-efficient option. I have received 2 proposals. One proposal is from BDS Billing Document Specialists located in Caldwell, Idaho. The proposal given is for the amount of $20,980. The second proposal is from Umpqua Bank, who is currently the county's banking institution. The proposal is for the amount of $27,882.18 and setup charges of $2,350 that will be paid from this year's budget. After reviewing the services that will be provided and the requirements to receive these services, I am requesting approval to move forward with Umpqua Bank. Although this is the higher proposal, and I do not take that lightly, Umpqua is offering the most secure, beneficial, and efficient process to meet our needs in serving the taxpayers. There is no contract for this service with Umpqua, and it can be discontinued or changed at any time. This has been reviewed by legal.
Can you give a little bit of explanation to the public regarding what your lockbox is and what you're trying to do with that?
So basically, how this process is going to work, the lockbox is a payment processing service that is housed with Umpqua Bank, and the service where they will be doing this is in Tacoma, Washington. So we will have the ability to control what goes to the lockbox. You are not going to see anything different on how you pay your taxes. It's all going to be the same. What's going to happen is when the bills come to us in December, which is where we get the majority of our traffic, we will then be overnighting those payments to the lockbox service. Umpqua is going to pay for all of the overnight charges. What's going to happen then is they will open, scan all the documents, the check, anything in the envelope and the envelope itself, record and deposit the same day into our account. Then we will receive a file that we can download into our tax system, which allows us the ability to download hundreds of payments that would take us days to post by hand. Right now, every single payment that comes through our office, we have to open manually, post it manually. All that has to be done by just the 6 of us in the office. This import process isn't anything new. We do import all of our mortgage company payments as well. This is just using technology that Umpqua can provide to us so that we can keep up on the posting of those payments. Last year in December, it was very clear the public was not happy, and I completely understand. Sometimes it takes 3 weeks before you know whether or not we've even received your check. It can take us that long to get through all the mail. We did not finish posting all the December 20th mail until about the 3rd week of January. To me, this is not a service to the taxpayers. I, for one, like to know if you received my check too. I just think this solves a lot of problems and keeps us working very efficiently.
Can you also explain to the public why we're choosing the higher cost?
Yes, I
I'm
can.
anticipating what some of you guys are going to ask.
Yep, you bet. So after talking to BDS, which is in Caldwell, Idaho, they are requiring that we change all of our services to them. That's printing our tax notices and all of our credit card platforms. We have a good relationship with Masters Touch, who is currently our print vendor. They're out of Spokane, Washington. They do a great job on our tax notices. I don't feel that it's in our best interest to move these services, which would require us to recreate the design and format of our bills and jeopardize the quality in the service. Also, BDS uses a third-party company called Jack Henry and Associates to process the payments. BDS will open the payments, get them ready for deposit, which will then go to Jack Henry and Associates, where they will deposit the funds into their account and then wire the money to our bank account. This causes us to supply our bank account information to another company, which causes an unnecessary risk to the county and also the taxpayers, since they will also be gathering your customer bank information to pull the funds from their accounts. By using Umpqua, which is where our accounts are already at, it's a seamless process with same-day deposits.
And there was no local option available to do the lockbox.
There is no local
Now you
option
guys can ask
available.
questions, because I knew that was going, I knew where your questions were.
I have a question. $27,000.
Over here.
Sorry.
Brett needs to hear what you have to say too.
To hear from you.
Name for the record.
Devil's advocate for the record.
Try again.
Shirley DeValley. $27,000 is a significant amount.
It is.
And you'll be sending it over to Washington and having them do their thing and whatever and taking care of it. Is that cheaper than hiring either temporary or part-time or seasonal work to help and give another position to a local here?
It is very much cheaper than hiring a full-time person. In order to make a dent in this, I would be looking at least needing 3 full-time people. The problem with that is I don't need 3 people all year long. I just need them basically in December and June.
Well, there you go with the seasonal.
Right. So the question then came up, let me find my notes because I do better when I just look at my notes. That way I don't get off track and start rambling. Okay, so the part-time staff, that had been thought of. However, it would not be beneficial or help us in accomplishing what we need. There is a lot of training that needs to go into someone in order to bring them up to speed on the processing of tax payments. It's not just as simple as, oh, stub, check, put it on the payment. What if the person's delinquent? What if, there's all different scenarios that can happen with a tax payment in the system. So there's a lot of training that needs to go into someone in order to bring them up to speed on processing all tax payments. This includes the many different scenarios when processing tax payments, learning our system, etc. Unless it was the same people that came back every 6 months, this is an option that would distract us more than it would help. In order to make a dent, I would need at least 3 additional employees. So it's not that I didn't think about hiring part-time staff. I just think my likelihood of getting those same repeat people back every single cycle is probably not going to happen. And it would just take away from us. We would have to train them, answer questions, and it takes away from us continuing on with the process as well.
I don't know, you were with the clerk's office when you were getting all the same people back for the elections. You did a great job then.
Yeah, well,
They're not
unfortunately,
playing
this
with
is.
your tax dollar.
Yeah, but she's really good with people. I think she could handle it.
Are you applying for the job?
Sure, who wants to hire me?
You can't add and subtract, right?
No.
Okay, well, you'll work out perfect on the federal level.
Wayne Martin for the record. Payments that people want to or do bring in to the office, those you guys end up sending over to the other,
No, if you walk it
here.
into our office or even the lockbox that I now have installed in front of the double doors, no, it doesn't change anything. Any payment that comes through our office, like you walk in, we will process this. This is just the large volumes of mail that we receive all at once the tax bills go out. We cannot keep up with that. And it's not a service to the taxpayers that it takes us 3 weeks to get to your payment. We have phone calls all the time. Do you have my payment? I don't know. There's like 10 tubs of mail in the back. So this way you will know immediately that these payments have been received, cashed, and your taxes are paid. Again, I know this is a cost. I don't take it lightly, but I believe it's the best option to keep up with the growth whilst remaining cost-effective and efficient for the taxpayers.
Actually, I have one more comment before I motion, because I know there's people online that would have asked this question. ESGs, she did look for a bank that was not involved in that, and it wasn't an option. Most banks have moved in that direction, so she was conscious of that concern from community members too. So with that, I move to approve Umpqua Bank proposal for lockbox processing services that will be used by the treasurer's office. This has been reviewed by legal.
I second the motion.
Roll call vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr. Howard with solid waste, not that Mr. Howard is a solid waste, but.
Morning, Commissioners. Bob Howard, Director of Solid Waste for the record. Attached is a land lease agreement between Bonner County and Woods Crushing and Hauling. Parcel number RP 58 North 01 West 074220A, owned by Woods Crushing and Hauling Incorporated, and is located easterly of the Colburn Transfer Station at 232 Pinecone Road in Sandpoint, Idaho. Bonner County will pay Woods Crushing and Hauling $500 per month for the term of the lease. Solid Waste will be temporarily locating the tire bunker and the wood waste pile and any other additional equipment for the duration of the project. The project is anticipated to begin on or near June 1st, 2023 and end November 1st, 2024. This has been approved by legal.
And this is because of the improvements being made to the Colburn Waste Station?
Yeah, this is during the construction phase.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Mr. Chairman, based on the information before us, I move that the county approve the land lease agreement between Bonner County and Woods Crushing and Hauling for $500 per month for the use during the Colburn construction project.
I second the motion.
Public comment?
Spencer Hutchings, was this in the budget?
Yes.
Awesome.
Brian, you got your hand up. Unmute yourself.
Brian Domke for the record.
Go ahead.
I believe I'm asking the same question Spencer's beginning to ask. Just wanted to confirm, Bob, if the cost of this is a part of the approved budget for the award of contract associated with the improvements.
Yes, it is.
Thank you for that information.
Thanks, Brian. Okay, roll call vote?
Commissioner Ahmed?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Bradshaw?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right. Engineering.
Before Spencer gets started, I just want to say thank you for the answers you provided in regards to the questions that Mr. Rose had. And because you're up here again, I'd like to ask you some more questions. There's been great public interest in reference to this solid waste proposal. And we have a number of requests in regards to that. So to try to set the public's mind at further ease, can you tell me what type of auditing is there going to be in regards to this USDA grant? Is it just going to be one and done? There's no oversight? It's just going to be by the seat of our pants? Or
no.
How does that work?
So there's multiple checks for the financial management. So what happens is we everything that from the beginning for design fees, for construction costs, for anything that we're paying using that federal money for, or the construction loan, we have to send all those pay requests to the USDA for approval, and they sign off on each one individually. So we'll email an invoice to the USDA, and then they'll approve it. They'll say, hey, it looks good to us. Then we send it to the auditors, and they look over that invoice as well and make sure that our money's aligned. And then we have the outside auditor that's required to look over all of those expenses once they're all in and accounted for. And then our outside auditor, as I understand it, there's a couple more federal compliance laws that pertain to the money and the management of that the outside auditor is equipped and capable of completing for us. And this is a conversation I had with auditing a long time ago when we were getting this all going is, hey, who's all doing what, and because originally I thought, hey, we need a separate auditor to just manage this loan. But we've been able to confirm with the auditor's office that our outside auditor for the county we're already hiring can complete all this work.
So can I actually pause this, because this topic isn't on the agenda, and there is a desire for community to understand this particular arrangement, and Bob Howard agreed to kind of have that discussion. Since it's not on the agenda, how about we go to the agenda item and then address that in the discussion about that particular grant, because that's not what's on the agenda. And there's a lot of people that want to know, and you did a really good job on the questions you answered in real time last week. That was fantastic amount of information, and after that, some people wanted to be able to have a dialogue.
Okay. Okay, so with the agenda item, on April 27, 2001, The BOCC retained the services of H2A Architects for the purpose of designing and preparing project documents for the new EMS Station 1 and office complex project. The project documents and drawings have been completed, and the engineering department would like to move forward. The engineering department is requesting permission to advertise for bids for the improvements to be located at 1314 Ontario Street, just right across the road. H2A Architects has prepared the attached notice of advertisement for bids with the intent of advertising May 19th and May 26th. Sealed bids will be received by the Bonner County Commissioner's Office until 2 p.m. June 15th of this year. The project is funded using Org Object 00118-9480 for 70% of the total cost, and Org Object number 9918-9480 for 30% of the total cost.
I move that the county authorize engineering to advertise for bids for the EMS Station Number 1 and Office Complex project. I further authorize the chairman to sign administratively.
I second the motion.
Roll call vote. Public comment before we vote. Okay, roll call vote.
Commissioner Ahmed?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Bradshaw?
Yes. Okay, Waterways. We get Miss Mary.
Thank you.
Mary Lindgren, Admin Assistant for Recreation Waterways. I have 3 items. The first one is the Bonner County Barnum Park West closure for Timber Days. The Priest River Chamber of Commerce is requesting to host this year's Timber Days events at the Bonner Park West in order to accommodate the festivities. They are requesting the closure of the parking lot and boat launch on Saturday, July 29th. The chamber will coordinate all signage and public notice of the closure.
Mr. Chairman, based on the information before us, I move to approve the closure of the Bonner Park West boat launch and parking lot on Saturday, July 29th, 2023.
I second the motion.
Public comment?
Just 24 on there.
I was gonna. It's a typo on the
Yeah.
agenda.
Well,
Yes. We'll probably close it that day too.
Okay,
next
roll
year.
call vote.
And more likely.
Commissioner Ahmed?
yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Bradshaw?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, the next item is the Garfield Bay Campground Host Contract. Attached for your consideration is the Garfield Bay Campground Contract naming Donald Sam Coleman as the campground host for the 2023 season. This is a weekly contract in the amount of $440 per week, starting the 3rd Friday in May, continuing until the 3rd Friday in September. The campground host will be paid bi-weekly to provide full-time services and will reside at the campground. The contractor is required to carry general liability insurance.
All right, based on the information before us, I move that the county approve the 2023 Garfield Bay Campground Host Contract naming Donald Sam Coleman as the campground host.
Mr. Chairman, I second the motion.
Roll call vote. Any comment?
Wayne Martin, for the record, talked about the liability insurance. They have to supply that to you before they're actually guaranteed payments and all.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, roll call vote.
Commissioner Ahmed?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Bradshaw?
Yes, ma'am. Okay,
Okay, and the final item, Bonner Park West Host Contract. Attached for your consideration is the Bonner Park West contract naming Tom Hool as the day use park host. This is a weekly contract in the amount of $340 per week, starting the 3rd Friday in May, and will continue every week thereafter until the 3rd Friday in September. The park host will be paid bi-weekly to maintain the park and day use facilities and will reside at the park. The contractor is required to carry general liability insurance.
Mr. Chairman, based on the information before us, I move that the county approve the 2023 Bonner Park West host contract naming Tom Hool as the park host.
I second the motion.
Public comment? Name for the record.
Sherry DeValley. You talk about the general liability insurance. What kind of limits are we talking about on that? And I should have asked this on the previous one too, and I apologize.
You know, I'm sorry, I have the, I don't know. I'm doing this for Pete, and let me see.
It's on page 3.
$300,000. Okay, and that's pretty well standard throughout.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's the same pretty much every year.
Hey,
That's it?
That's it.
roll call vote? Are we-
Commissioner Ahmed?
Yes?
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Bradshaw?
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Humanoid Resources with Ms. Bickert.
Good morning, Commissioners. Cindy Binkert for the record. We have request for today, request to recruit, requesting approval to recruit for the following position for desktop technician and a communication services administrator for 911. These would be new positions requested to provide basic and advanced level IT support for the Sheriff's Office, 911, prosecutor, and other related departments and/or services. The expected impact for the remainder of the fiscal year, including salary and benefits, would be approximately $32,000. I spoke with the auditor's office, and these funds would come from the statutory reserve for the remainder of the year and would be reevaluated during the budget process in July.
Based on the information before us, I move to approve commencing with approval of new positions for the Sheriff's Desktop Support Technician and Communication Service Administrator, 911, effective May 16th, 2023.
Mr. Chairman, I second the motion.
Roll call vote?
We want public comment.
Public comment? Nobody wants to do it?
Okay.
Roll call vote?
Commissioner Ahmed?
Mr. Chairman, these are new positions which grows government. They were not budgeted. I think the appropriate time to have this discussion is in our call to budget for the 2024 fiscal year. No.
This was discussed actually in executive session, the need for additional personnel for the Sheriff's Office. My vote is yes.
Commissioner Bradshaw?
No. Okay, next, I will step down from the chair. That got removed. Resolution to redesignate Bonner County real property at Bonner County Readiness Center. The Bonner County Board of Commissioners is vested with the authority to manage county-owned real property pursuant to Idaho Code 31-807. On May 27, 2014, the board entered into a memorandum of understanding, MOU, regarding the use of certain property adjacent to the Bonner County Fairgrounds. The board is free to terminate previous MOUs and now desires to utilize the property in question for other purposes. The property shall not be limited to parking for the fairgrounds, but may be used for any other legal purposes. Somebody else want to read the?
Mr. Chairman, based on the information before us, I move to approve Resolution 23-36, May 16th, 2026, designating the northwestern portion of Block 1, Lot 1, in the Bonner County Readiness Center to be utilized for any purpose dissolving all previous MOUs, and this resolution was crafted by the Bonner County Prosecutor's Office.
I'll second the motion to advance it for discussion.
Okay. Comment, discussion, all the above.
So we want to go public comment first?
Public comment? Spencer, name for the record.
Spencer Hutchings, I'm sure you're all shocked I have any opinion on this whatsoever. I'm still grasping with what the obsession with this piece of property is. Has anything changed? Does anybody want to update me on what the obsession with the Board of Commissioners is with this piece of property?
Some of the Board of Commissioners.
Any of you? I would take an answer from anyone at this point. I mean, I think I've asked this question over the last, 2-3 months, probably 30 times, and I have yet to get an answer.
That is not accurate. I will give you the same answer that I have given repeatedly. I have here a letter dated March 28th, 2001. And this is, as I have gone through and looked at the historical record, this is a reflection. And here, I will read the letter in its entirety, and then I will bring back to the comment, which was, we are interested in not putting additional burdens on the taxpayer and making the fairgrounds more self-sufficient. So here is a letter dated March 28, 2001 to Becky Witt from Sharon Bryant, the fairgrounds manager. I know neither of these ladies. Becky, can you please schedule the commissioners to come out to the fairgrounds to go over some of the budgetary problems and management problems I have been encountering ever since I took over the management of the fairgrounds. Specifically, I need to go over the way my budget is set up and the expenses I pay for others, which are not reimbursed. The previous commissioners told me they want to become self-supporting, and I need to know how they want me to achieve that. So 22 years ago, the goal of the fairgrounds manager and a previous Board of County Commissioners was to move the Bonner County Fairgrounds towards being more financially self-sufficient. The reasons why I was opposed in the last motion was because it is an additional tax burden. I am not interested in growing government in that fashion. As someone who has camped in that area, and as someone who is very aware, and I have received letters from a number of fair and 4-H families advocating for this project because that is where they camp. And I went to that event. I was not in a black dress on Saturday, but as I drove in my super sweet minivan, I almost got to spend some money at a local auto body shop because the potholes in the parking lot are so massive. At the last Fair Board meeting, they had a gentleman who was appalled at the condition of the road, and he made a very generous offer, and I'm not speaking for the Fair Board, to assist with improving that by providing a personal donation or his company's donation. The fairgrounds needs revenue, and this is a means to build revenue, but also to improve uses that have been in place for decades without putting my hand out to the taxpayer.
First of all, I completely support the fairgrounds and being able to support itself. And I don't know if all the fairgrounds across Idaho and the rest of the country support themselves by having RV parks that are in competition with private RV parks, but I suspect that there's quite a few fairgrounds across this nation and in this state who don't have RV parks and are able to be financially stable, being able to keep the fairgrounds in the black. Second of all, that's great, but it still doesn't address the issue that the commissioners have tried multiple different ways to take this specific piece of property. It's not that you're having a fairground or that you're having an RV park. I don't care they're having an RV park as much as I care about exactly where you insist on that RV park going. You have over and over and over again found a way to go back to that exact same piece of property, be it the ice rink or this RV park thing. Even when the Fair Board wanted to put it someplace else on the fairgrounds, you helped change the Fair Board so that maybe now they're agreeing with you. I'm not sure if they're agreeing with you guys or not. But this is not a mystery, Luke. I mean, this has been going on. You guys have yet to explain why that one particular chunk of property is so vital to your needs.
I would like to make a comment on the letter that the commissioner read, because there's something distinctly different in that letter versus what members of this current board are doing. What you heard was someone who was working for the fair inviting the commissioners to the table to have a discussion about what the goal was versus the commissioners telling what the plan is to the fair. And that is critical to point out that difference because it is the right of the fair to create their own plan. which includes the RV campground. So the question is not anything to do with taxes. It has nothing to do with the independence of the fairground. It's the imposition of the desire of the board toward the fairground when the fairground hasn't actually asked for us to do any of this. And that bears pointing out, because that's what the letter said. Invite the commissioners to the fair to have this discussion so that the fair could develop their plan. And that is, this continues to be frustrating because there is no representation of the fair. We've heard the commissioners who are voting for this consistently say that we're going to have this discussion with the fair board, yet that has not actually occurred. There just seems to be another memorandum of understanding or a change in an agreement, or in this case, removing a memorandum of understanding to say that now you can only use that current parking spot for an RV campground, which is not the vision of the fairground, while we spend up to $25,000 based on a decision of the board. This is a problematic process, and if we learn anything from that letter, it should be that this board should be talking to the fairground, not just creating its own decision, because the fairground does not have to follow through with this.
And how insolvent is the fairgrounds? I mean, are they losing money every year? You don't even know, or?
They don't have the money to be able to fund this project. And there were some
I'm not
interesting.
asking about that. I'm saying, is the budget of the fairgrounds negative every year? Is the county having to fund the fairgrounds every year?
The county does put money in. And in 1927, now there were some interesting misrepresentations of history there, which I have come to expect. But in 1927, when Bonner County originally started the Bonner County Fair, it was Bonner County who subsidized it, which is why it is Bonner County real owned property. This property is owned and by statute controlled by Bonner County. That is real owned property, that's statute. There was not even a fair board until 1930. Bonner County purchased the ground, the dirt where the current fairgrounds sits on in 1960. And after that took place, the city, yet once again, we have to follow law. The city did not allow the continuance of the fairgrounds over at where the museum currently sits. And that what happened is it hastened the move from what is Lakeview Park of the fairgrounds, where there used to be a ton of old buildings, but that was before my time, to where it is now. And the county has historically subsidized it because it is state statute for us to subsidize the fair. So they are nested together. The county created the fairgrounds and the fair board came later.
Can I ask you, what does the county give the fair? Because I don't believe that has actually ever changed.
Right, and I'm just curious here. I mean, how much are we spending on the fair? How much are they losing every year that this RV park is supposed to make up? And is the money that we're going to gain from this RV park, in theory, going to make it up? And still, back to the base question, why right there? Why is this one particular chunk of property so vital to this? I still haven't heard the answer, and we're talking months here. We've been getting the same question over and over again. Why that piece of property? Not a history lesson, not about your family, not about where you camp. Why that piece of property? I think it's a simple question that you've avoided answering for months.
Thank you.
I think what comes out over
But no
and
answer
over
still.
is that it's unfortunate, because what I hear when I hear the explanation is always the county commissioners get to make the decision. The county commissioners are in charge of the county land, but it doesn't answer the question. And to be honest, the county, if you recognize the need for the RV campground, because it would be beneficial for them to have a campground, but at what expense? But we're also risking even receiving the grant. And my argument remains the same over, this is encumbered land. If we need to use it for an expansion of the Justice Department, which is greater than just the sheriff's office, it includes the courts, then if we pull out of this RV campground on this location, we are subject to being obligated to pay all or part of it back. And so if we want to use the argument of not having a burden on the taxpayers, where will the almost $500,000 come from? It will take services away from Bonner County, and it will be, in my opinion, inappropriate to tell the state we would like a grant for something that we may potentially have to bulldoze because we are choosing the location because we can versus making an objective assessment of where we could put that. I have not heard anything other than we get to make the decision, and that isn't enough to risk paying back $500,000.
Well, I would encourage all three commissioners to do the whole county a favor and let us in on this big secret that you guys all obviously know about, that is the best place in the whole county that we could put that RV park. Even though the Fairgrounds board, the previous Fairgrounds board, didn't want it there, but you guys did. I mean, apparently it was obvious, it was also like the perfect place in the entire county for an ice rink until that was, squashed by the AG, and then now it's a perfect place for an RV park. The exact same piece of property. So if you guys want to tell us what the secret mystery is at that piece of property, why it's so ideal for you guys to use for something, I'm all ears, man. I mean, I've asked you guys how many times?
I will correct and say I've always voted no, so you're asking the other two.
Right, but I'm wondering what they're keeping from you and why as county commissioners, you guys aren't privy all to the same information. I mean, there's something wrong here. It's obviously wrong. And I love the stares back like, oh, we got nothing to say. We don't know nothing.
You're up.
Sheriff Wheeler.
Sheriff Darrell Wheeler for the record. Just wanted to give, I guess, a little bit of historical perspective, and also maybe I just want to ask a few questions, because I know that before I came into office, there were intention of building a 60-bed facility in front of the sheriff's office and a new juvenile detention facility. That was squashed because it didn't go to the voters, and so more plans were made throughout that time. 2006, there was a study made, and there was a lot of communications between all the elected officials on where we should build property. I have maps from 2006 study showing that location where the proposed RV park is, where there's a building there for proposed building. So there's been this communication, and I can tell you, I was in office as sheriff in 2014, and I remember when Mike Nielsen brought this proposal, and he acknowledged collaboration between the sheriff's office, the prosecutor, the fair board, and he recognized that that land was at one time going to be utilized for expansion for a justice center. And so there was a purpose in that, only designating that for parking only, because he knew that that could be reversed and they could no longer park there because they would there's going to be a building there in that at some time in the future. We don't know when, but in some of the future. So some of the question is this same board doing that same kind of collaboration between the fair board and the sheriff and the prosecutor and the courts? Because that's I know the answer, but I'd like you to answer that as commissioners, because there doesn't seem like a purpose like they had in 2014. There was a direct purpose. It's just designating that for parking, and now you're kind of opening up this whole new discussion on, well, what are we going to use it for? I see now that you purposely want to use it for RV park. We had this discussion last year, 2 years ago. There was going to be a skating rink. There was a purpose in securing that for just parking, but it doesn't appear in this resolution. There's not that collaboration between the other elected officials. There's never been any discussion. So could you answer that question?
Mr. Chairman, could I read the resolution? Because the resolution was actually crafted by Mr. Wilson, and it provides that, because there is a timeline with this, and if the timeline isn't met, the following piece, depending on how this goes, there is a request for an extension. But now, therefore, be it resolved by the Bonner County Board of Commissioners that the MOU in question is hereby dissolved, and the property in question shall not be limited to parking for the fairgrounds, may be used for any other legal purpose. So I believe any other legal.
That doesn't answer my question.
Well,
my question has there been any collaboration with the other elected officials on the goals and plans on using that for something else? Because that time in 2014, it was always designated for expansion for the Justice Center, and those commissioners at that time recognized that, and they did not want to tie that up. Their resolution didn't say, we will give that portion of property permanently for the fair and they could do whatever they want. They purposely said it was only for designated strictly and exclusively. Exclusively means only for Now, what you're doing is you're kind of opening this Pandora's box. It can be used for anything. So if something happens, if the board decides that they don't want to build a RV park there, is there going to be another project coming up in the future that the other elected officials aren't going to have a discussion with, and is that going to be used for some other project? That's an honest
I'll address
question.
that. Yeah, none of this has ever been done in secret. You just never did like the conversation. So you've been in on all the conversations. You just didn't like the answers. You've been in the facilities over at the Fairgrounds. Which one of them are really up to date and just state of the art? Not a one of them. You want to pay for it out of your budget? I know the Treasury doesn't want to pay out of their budget. Mike Rosedale don't want to pay out of his budget. The courts certainly don't have the budget to do it. So, and the county doesn't have the budget to do it. So what's the source of income that you recommend, Daryl? My ears are forward.
For what, sir?
To get all them buildings repaired. Where are we going to get the money?
Well, that would be the responsibility at the recommendation of the Fair Board. I'm the
Bingo.
elected sheriff, and my purpose, at least until I leave office, is to make sure that we have a site available for an expansion of the Justice Center. I mean, we've seen.
And you do.
So that's my question, and what kind of work has been done. So I guess I'm sure that the Fair Board will figure that out and make that right decision.
Right.
But that still doesn't answer my question. There has been, I talked to Lewis and I talked to the clerk, and there's been no communications on what your plans are. We've showed up on the meetings, and actions have been taken without our input. I can say that's happened, but.
So in this particular case, what happened was that the county commissioners met and they made their own memorandum of understanding, and I'll give it as a disclaimer because it was not a legal document. They did not consult with Bill Wilson, and so Bill sent an email to the board saying that that's not the way you would do that if you want to change that, and that's how this particular resolution came. It was not a consultation with the other elected officials, essentially. It was if you want to disentangle from the MOU, this was the way you were supposed to have done it.
And Lewis actually made the recommendation on how to change this and make it correct. And that was discussed with Lewis between me and him immediately after we did the MOU. And I said, I don't know that was the right way. I said, how hard is that to fix? He said, it's very simple. So yeah, it's nothing that was hid in the dark, nothing behind the scenes, no secret meetings.
No, to be clear though,
So-
that's not that. So I'm not talking about what was in the document. I'm talking about the creation of the document. So there was no discussion with Lewis of, is this a good idea? Because this has never been a good idea. It was, you guys have made your decision. This is the process that you would have had to actually go through. That is what I'm commenting on. I'm not going to say that, because in that meeting, I said repeatedly, I get that the two of you are going to make the decision, but you're calling this a memorandum of understanding, and that is not the correct way to do it. And then this came about after.
So, and one question then, Commissioner Bradshaw, in your conversation with Lewis, was there a conversation? Did you ever ask him, do you think this is a good idea that we designate this for the campground? Was that ever a question?
No.
Okay.
Because that's not his wheelhouse. I don't
proves
ask
my
him,
point.
I don't
There
ask
was
him,
no discussion.
you know,
It
he
was
doesn't
just-
come and ask me how he should prosecute a case. You don't come and ask me how you should investigate a case. Carissa doesn't come and ask me how she should do the taxes.
Well, when there's
Mike
an issue-
Rosedale doesn't ask me how I think he should do the elections. We all have our job. This is within our
Mr. Chairman,
wheelhouse,
there's
and this
issue
is
of
our job.
Public property that has an interest of all of the other elected officials, there should be a conversation.
And it has been. You just didn't ever like the answers.
Well, I was not involved in those conversations.
Yes,
The
you were.
actions were taken, and then I've had to
You've
react
been at
to
every,
that action.
you've been at
Thank
every
you very much. It's
proposal
obvious you don't
on
want to
this.
answer my question.
I did answer your question.
Wayne Martin for the record. I gave you questions that I have. Part of it is pertaining to the fairgrounds. Last week I gave you questions also. And as I said, I don't expect answers right away. I do hope that you folks will be looking at those and coming up with answers, irregardless of what goes on. I know that the next item is going to be the extension request for this. If you removed the red house and red barn garage and you put 25 spots in there at $25, it is more money than what you get for the rent of that piece of property. A real concern that I have, and I've never heard this being addressed, is paying for phase 2 and phase 3, because that grant, the way that I read it, is for only phase 1. And phase 2 and phase 3, which is a restroom, because as it talks in there about having a close restroom until that restroom building gets built, and that's scheduled for phase 3, it could maybe be changed to phase 2, are requesting those people to walk all the way across that fairgrounds to go to a restroom. The second item on that, number one, I would not ever allow my wife or child or grandchild to do that, which means I would have to get up and go walking with them, is the cost of putting the sewer line in. And according to the paperwork that I have read, it talks about putting the sewer line in so that it can eliminate or minimize the destruction or interruption of that camp facility at a later time. So it would be wherever the restroom building, shower building is. Is that going to, or is that included going out to the current sewage line? Or is it stopping short of cutting the street up to extend it? If so, there's an additional cost on that. Is there a possibility of being able to obtain any more property around that area? Excuse me, whether it is for the fairgrounds or for the justice system. I've been out there recently. There is not a lot of property out there. Another question that I also have a concern with, and I think it's in last week's, but you look at the map, there are utility right-of-ways or easements and all, and it affects a total of 8 spaces. How often does that get utilized? I don't know. You'd have to talk to Northern Lights or whoever's doing the electrical. I know the neighbor ended up, one of my neighbors out in Hoodoo Valley, they ended up putting a building over the power lines. They ended up having to trench and put it in versus ending up having, the county or electric company doing it. So, I do hope that you are looking at that and looking at, how the other sections are going to get paid to be able to, do that.
Thank you. You asked some very good questions, and I think the problem for me is that a lot of what you're asking is what the fairgrounds should be putting forth to the county for their plan, because we're not, even as a commissioner, I have not seen a plan from the fairgrounds, and it isn't the county commissioners that develop that plan per the rules. It's them.
And I've been giving them.
Yeah. And I believe that they will have a meeting tonight, now that they're a full board. So we're a little bit ahead of them in terms of wanting to make a decision on something.
Cheryl.
Cheryl Messer for the record. Has this fair board asked for a boundary line adjustment for this RV park? Have they asked the Board of Commissioners for that?
It's probably not something they would have asked for. It was the engineer and the city of Sandpoint that asked for it.
That's not accurate because.
Actually, that's 100% accurate, Commissioner Williams.
So I'll reference the correct meeting, because we had this meeting before it was closed to being able to add a ballot question. And the director of planning was at that meeting and stated that there was no bound plating required of the fairground land if that RV camp were to go there. And the fairgrounds has not requested a boundary line adjustment either. What is needed based on actions of members of the board is if you place the RV campground on the contested location, that's where you come up with the need for that adjustment. And again, that is not a request from the fairground, though. That is based on if all of this passes and you move forward, that's what makes it requirement. That's an accurate response to the question.
And will we be bound? Well, you guys may not be in office then, but in 5 years, my understanding is in that grant, you have to leave that RV park there for at least 5 years.
20.
20, that's
It's
right.
over
25. Actually, it's 25.
20.
Okay. Years. So you guys won't be around. So how
I
do
might
you
be.
know that the Justice Center?
Should still be around.
Well, in the office, maybe not. But how do you know that the
She's early
Justice Center
on.
will not, the courts, the prosecuting attorney, these other county facilities will not need that for something? I didn't think so. Okay.
How do we know that we're not going to need 4 more floors on top of this when we're out of office? We don't know. There's always what we don't know. What we do know is the fairground struggles to make their budget float. And part of Wayne's question was why not tear down the one rental? Well, now you have an increased revenue. You just took away and replaced with something else. So you haven't accomplished anything there. So in order to make the fairgrounds more solvent, I'm open to any suggestion that would create that much revenue. And so far, I've never heard one suggestion or help from the public that would help us with that. Not one.
And at some point, there may be a thing where you reduce what you put in. I mean, all of us have a certain amount budget.
Right.
I had one other thing.
And that's all we get.
I had one other thing. I without making accusations, I'm just going to say, there's some people that are very loyal to Darcy Smith here, and that's good. But Darcy, back in October 26, 2021, her memorandum, this had to do with the Bonner County and Sandpoint Community Center Corporation lease agreement between the fairground and the ice arena thing. And she put the parcel down as RPS 383-5001-0020A. And that was down on the Readiness Center. That was that part there. So in 2021, she knew the difference between that and the fairgrounds parcel, which is a totally different one. On January 17th, 2022, for this grant, Idaho Parks and Recreation RV Grant Program application, she asked the Board of County Commissioners, signed by Dan McDonald, for permission to do this grant, make the application, and she put in it, the location for this expansion will be in the southwest corner of the Bonner County Fairgrounds parcel number RPS, and there's about 6 zeros, and then 3601A, which is the fairgrounds parcel, period. And although you say you were open with everybody, I do not recall knowing anything about the RV park being down on the Readiness Center property on this other parcel that Darcy knew the difference between. And until we got the application. Because it wasn't until we got a copy of the application that we saw everything said fairgrounds. The deed was for the fairground property as it exists. The parcel was for the fairgrounds. The only thing different was Sewell Engineering put it down there. Schematic. That's it. Makes no sense. Did not seem open at all. That was not open. Thank you.
Cheryl, are you speaking as a private citizen today, or are you currently working for the sheriff's office?
I'm sure.
The sheriff, well, Bonner County Sheriff's Office. Okay, I just wasn't.
I have documents that I'm presenting.
Sure, I wasn't certain, because there is somewhat of a difference between on the clock or.
She's on the clock.
Yeah, thank you.
I've asked her to be here to represent the sheriff's office.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to light up the two that's had their hand up for a while first. Miss Well? Or Mr. Well?
Welly.
Welly?
Miss Diane.
My
Go
name is
ahead.
Diane Welly. Can you hear me?
Can.
If I cough into the microphone, forgive me, I've had pneumonia. This potential decision is clearly arbitrary and capricious, since two of the board members are flatly refusing to disclose the answers to why this particular piece of land is being requested when the Fair Board has not requested it. If the fairground cannot support itself, it behooves the Fair Commission to find their own resources. Mr. Bradshaw, taking your disrespectful comment to the sheriff as an example, you just don't like answering the question at hand. Why that piece of land? Your flat disrespect to the sheriff is duly noted, and it will be remembered when your tenure comes back around should you or Luke run. Sheriff Wheeler, the disrespect shown to you today is hardly the Police Week greeting deserved by you or your staff. I'm embarrassed at the disrespect shown to you today related to a clear vendetta against you in particular. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian?
Brian Domke for the record. I would appreciate if you could help me understand if other locations for an RV campground have been considered and why they have been not selected to be put forward. I'm just trying to make sure I understand the process as to how the current location has been reached as compared to thoughtful consideration being given to other potential locations on the fairgrounds property, as far as a pros and cons type of evaluation of different locations.
All those logistics were looked at last year when it started going forward before we applied for the grant. We looked at it down below the horse barns. There wasn't enough room and still allow for horse trailer parking there. They talked about splitting it into like 3 different pieces throughout the fairgrounds. That would entail 3 times the infrastructure instead of being on one line, one power line. Logistically was not feasible dollar-wise. And so that's how it ended up there, with consulting with the engineers and the best place to put it to meet the needs of the grant.
And I apologize if I'm asking you to repeat information that's already been gone over, but are there conceptual drawings, plans, things that depict these other options that were looked at?
There was, yeah.
Okay, I'll be happy to research that then. I appreciate that.
You bet. Thanks, Brian.
John Dupree, South County taxpayer resident of Bonner County. And I got to say that looking at parallel things in history, I look at Donald Trump, the president, wanting to build a wall to prevent the invasion of the United States of America by illegals. Migrants are wonderful people. Illegals are not. And Pelosi and company said, no, $5 billion is too much. We can't afford that. And they voted it down, and they made difficulties. And now we're probably spending that much money, and plus every year, dealing with the influx of people because they were not thinking of the big picture. What affects things, the unintended consequences of our decisions. And you see, you have the authority to make the decisions. Now, we look at history, but we need to look at the current and we need to look at the future. When I think about our arguing over whether we have an RV park and all that kind of stuff, that compared to a justice system to protect the citizens of this county, current, present, future, there's no comparison. We need a justice facility. The taxpayers have already paid for that property. When it gets around time that we're going to need a justice facility, how much is that dirt going to cost to pay for being able to build a justice facility? Because once all hell breaks loose and we've got terror going on in the streets, we're going to have to do something about it. And it's going to cost a whole lot more money than this little piece of property that we're sniveling over, whether we have an RV park or a justice facility. Excuse me, as a taxpayer, as a citizen, I believe that our public health and our public safety is far more important than pleasing a transient group of people. And by the way, I think those potholes you're talking about, we started the construction for our justice facility. Thank you.
Or you can call in Road and Bridge and have them fix it. Isn't that what they do? The potholes that he just brought up. Now, you were talking
Name
about.
for the record.
Sherry DeValley for the record. You're talking about what we know, what we don't know, what we can't know down the road. What we do know. Bonner County's population skyrocketed recently. With an increase in population, we had an increase in crime. With an increase in crime, we have a larger need for a proper courthouse and justice system, justice center. The current courthouse is sinking. And y'all would rather dump wasted money into a sinking facility than build a proper facility. Why? Because everybody in this county knows that you hate the sheriff and want to poke the bear.
There's not a man in this county that will lay his life down for that man right there quicker than I will. Nobody.
I will.
Not a single
I
person.
will.
You can say it,
I can say
but
it.
I can actually tell you that I will
I don't care
step
if
in
you're gonna
front
lay
of
your
a bullet
life
for that
down for
man.
him. I'm talking about the fact
So to
that
say that I
you-
disrespect this man,
You do
don't like
disrespect
him,
this man. I've got
I
it
will
on
fight
tape.
for that man and every one of his deputies with every breath of life I have. So don't tell me I don't respect police, sheriff, and state police.
So
I
leave
grew
him
up in
alone to
state
do his
police and
job.
Houston Police Department people.
You won't let him do his job. You act like you
He
want
wants to do our
police.
job.
No, he
That's
doesn't.
not his job. You
No,
go
he
jump on
doesn't.
somebody else's
He wants to
butt.
do his job with the new justice center. Okay? That is what the
And
county has
I've
about
talked
for
to him
years.
how to do that and how to pay for it.
Oh, that's not your job. That's his job.
No, it is our job.
See, there you go. You can't figure it out. The fact
Our
is,
job to figure out how to get
that
the
land
money
has been
to do it.
designated for years. The county has weighed in on it. They want a new justice center. You won't put the money into that, but you'll put the money into a sinking courthouse and an RV park that nobody asked for.
Mr. Chairman, I would call the question.
Provide the money. Show me where to get it. 3% won't do it.
I have a question that maybe
It was
Bradshaw or the
offered
sheriff
to put
knows.
it up to vote, but he chose not to do that
When we
because
go,
it was election time.
when we go back to the original memorandum of understanding, does anybody understand why did we have to do a memorandum of understanding in order to use it as a parking lot? It's because partly what's happening here is we keep saying county land is not different, is exactly the same as fairground land. But we were required to do a memorandum of understanding for the parking. And so maybe one of the commissioners could help me understand why, if we needed that in order to park, why are we undoing that memorandum right now when we don't have an RV campground? You don't have the grant extension approved. So could we arguably say that this is actually premature to undo the memorandum of understanding because it appears as if we were required to do that for them
Sounds
to
like
park.
MOUs don't mean anything if you can undo them so easily.
I mean, that's an honest question on this one, because if we nix the MOU that already exists for parking today to be used for, there was a reason we had to do that, and I couldn't find that answer.
You were the one that provided the reason to do that because the grant says unencumbered and you pointed out that it was encumbered.
That's not the encumbrance that I was referencing.
Well, what was it then?
So the encumbrance, so the The encumbrance that I am referencing for putting the RV campground is the very fact that this board has historically stated that when we need to build the Justice Center out, which is not just the sheriff, it's the court system, that we could bulldoze that campground. So my statement to the county is that that means the land itself is encumbered because we have a use that we intend to use it for when we get down to it. The MOU isn't the encumbrance, it is the land itself is positioned for the expansion of the county, which this board has all, both of you who are voting to do it have stated that if we need to expand, we'll just remove the RV campground. And that's when I started saying, but that means the land is therefore encumbered, so we would be applying for the grant incorrectly because it demands that we not use encumbered land. So the memorandum of understanding is different because my question is still valid. If we needed the memorandum of understanding for the fairground camp and we undo that memorandum of understanding, then they're not able to park and we have a fair coming up. Are we prematurely doing this? Because you have multiple motions or things that you want us to sign, and I think my argument is valid that this one is premature because now they can't park there.
The property shall not be limited to parking for the fairgrounds, but may be used for any other legal purposes. I think that answered your question just fine.
I don't think so.
Unless you have a
No.
comprehension problem.
No. Well, I'm not being unkind, but I'm saying this actually specifically says you're going to undo the May 27th, 2014 memorandum of understanding, which specifically stated parking. So if you undo that, that's what I'm asking. And it's not me being difficult. It's a valid question.
Well, you can't have contradictory MOUs existing at the same time. You have to do away with one to bring an updated one.
I'm not disagreeing with you. That is what I'm saying the problem is. If you get rid of the one that said they could park there for you can do whatever you want with it, then they can't park there because we decided back in 2014 that it was necessary to have the memorandum of
Why
understanding.
can't they park there now?
If
You just
It
have to
says
take
right
the
there,
RV park
not
only.
limited to parking.
You
Now
are,
they can use it for other things too.
actually, anybody can use it for anything. There was a reason, which is my question. There's a
That
reason.
within legal purposes.
But there was a reason that it was advised to have an MOU, correct? And the board agreed, yes, they need an MOU to use it as
Because
a
our
parking
legal
area.
recommended it.
So if
and
we
so-
need the fair to park, legal recommended an MOU. We have a fair coming up, and if you get rid of the MOU that says, based on what you just said, we need it for them to park, then they cannot park there.
Why
So
can't
is
they
it-
park there? There's no parking sign there.
Why
We're not
did-
putting up a no
my
parking. It
que-
says right there,
So you both
Commissioner
are saying
Williams.
no, so say the why you can get rid of the MOU.
Unless you have an extreme comprehension problem, help me with this. The property shall not be limited to parking, but may be used for any other legal purpose. What part of that do you not get?
I don't think you're understanding you're getting rid of the parking MOU. Why did we agree?
We had to get rid of that one to bring an updated version.
What was the reason that we started a parking MOU?
Because you said it was encumbered.
No, I wasn't here in 2014.
So, okay, I'm gonna,
Could we vote?
I'm gonna call for a vote. This has gone on long enough.
Commissioner Ahmed?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
No.
Commissioner Bradshaw?
Yes. Okay, Commissioner Ahmet, you're up.
On June 1st, 2022, the Idaho Department of Parks and Recreation approved funding, excuse me, for the Bonner County Fair campground expansion in the amount of $473,315. Funds were not made available for this project until July 15th, 2022, with the initial project period ending June 30th, 2023. James A. Sewell and Associates was retained to manage this first phase of the proposed improvements with the long-term goal of putting the Bonner County Fairgrounds on a path towards financial self-sufficiency. Due to the timing of the fair in late August and the short construction window in Bonner County, it was always anticipated that an extension would be required to optimize the engineering and construction process. Attached are the proposed bid advertisement and a proposed timeline. So Here is a message from Jeff Jensen, who is the Sewell engineer, who I might add was also the engineer for the original phases on the northern side. So this engineer has been involved for every aspect of the campground. He worked with both Darcy and Rhonda in building these campgrounds. The timeline for construction is fall 2023, pending some conditional approvals from the city of Sandpoint and DEQ that should not be an issue. Those applications would be turned in prior to the bid date. Anything that does not get completed in the fall of 2023 would then be completed early spring of 2024. And then here is a draft advertisement for bids. We need to submit this extension in order to submit the bids, because there's no point in sending out a bid if we don't have funding. And it would be sealed bids for the construction of the Bonner County Fairgrounds Campground Expansion Project will receive by the Bonner County Commissioners at 1500 Highway 2, Suite 308, Sandpoint, Idaho 83864, until 2 p.m. local time on June 21st, 2023, at which time the bids received will be publicly opened and read. A pre-bid conference will be held at 3 p.m. local time on June 12th, 2023 at the project site located at 4203 North Boyer, Sandpoint, Idaho. Attendance at the pre-bid conference is encouraged, but not mandatory. And with that, Mr. Chairman, based on the information before us, I move to approve requesting an extension for Idaho Parks and Recreation Grant number RV 23-1-09 with the Idaho Department of Parks and Recreation.
I'll second the motion to advance it for discussion.
Discussion.
Are you going to do public comment first?
He really doesn't want to.
Let's see it, Spencer, so I'll say okay.
All right, so first of all, if the Fairgrounds is not, I still haven't heard a number yet of how short they are in their budget, but if you want to help the Fairgrounds make more money, maybe as commissioners, not because you're not the Fair Board, but maybe you could suggest to them to raise some fees. I think we're charging $25 a spot over there. I think Kootenai charges $50. So maybe double the fees. Maybe you don't have to build anything. Maybe you could just make up the money by doubling the fees. And after watching your interaction with the sheriff over months now, I think there's a vendetta going on here. I think this is as petty as that. I think it's a petty personal vendetta. And I've tried to understand. That's why I've asked you over and over again, what's going on here? You won't say anything. You refuse to answer. And I think it's a petty personal vendetta between you two and the sheriff.
Well, thank you, Spencer. Yes, ma'am.
I would just like to, Christina Nicholas Anderson for the record. I would just like to say that obviously there's value in a new justice center and there's value in an RV project. And so with that, it sounds like we have an opportunity for funds for the RV center. And I'm not aware, or at least nobody has spoke on it. I haven't heard the sheriff speak on it. And I haven't heard Cheryl speak on it, if there's funds for the Justice Center. And so I guess my thought is, if we're gonna look towards the Justice Center, we probably need to be looking at how we're gonna fund that. So if there's grants or something, or levies, I don't know how that works. I guess I'm speaking on my own ignorance about that, but maybe the next project we need to do is look at how we could fund something like that. Because right now, I hear a lot of people supporting and arguing for that, but I haven't heard that there's money for it. And I know that it takes time to do that. So I would just like to say that there's value in both, but I see that we have an opportunity right now for the RV spot. And I hear that the new MOU says we can still park in those spots until the RV is in place. So we have the best of all worlds right now. And there's still property that's going to be available for the Justice Center, even if this RV takes a piece of what's there. I just see an opportunity, and I don't know that all this arguing is beneficial for any of us. And I think, Sheriff Wheeler, you have so much you still can utilize, and maybe we can develop some funds so that we can make that bigger and better and still benefit the fair. And yeah, I think the Fair Board could look at a lot of things too. You know, we don't charge admission to this fair, which is such a gift to the community, whereas, you know, I heard Spencer say it's so much more expensive at Kootenai. And Kootenai's RV park is attached right next to their jail too. So when people have said that it's not a good scene or whatever, they do great. And theirs is right next to the juvenile jail. So I think there's a lot of things that people are thinking is negative that can really be positive and help our community in the long run and make the fair more self-sufficient. So thank you for hearing my comments. I just want all of us to play nice in the sand. That's all I want. So thank you.
Thank you, Christina.
Mr. Martin, nice to see you back.
Wayne Martin for the record. I have a question on the extension. Why, if it was believed or thought that we were going to need to request an extension way back whenever, I'm paraphrasing what I think I heard you say, Luke. Why have we waited so long to look at requesting the extension? Why haven't we been looking at trying to get a hold of the state Parks Department earlier to say, you know, we're requesting an extension? You know, the fair manager's passed away, you know, whatever's and all. So.
We've been doing that, and as I think demonstrated by today, there's a little bit, there's some differing opinions amongst a variety of the folks. And in regards to the extension, anything, if we apply for the extension as a board, that's why I had to put it on the agenda to do it so it's legal. And there are also steps in order for us to be able to receive the extension. If we just went out and asked for it without having a bid process or showing that we're actually making progress, they would turn it down. So these are the steps that we have to do. It has to be incremental. And so these are the steps in order for us to even apply. There is no guarantee that we are going to get the extension, which is why the resolution that was put forth 2 items ago unencumbers that piece of property. So this is the process. We like processes in government.
It just seems strange we didn't try doing it earlier.
Mr. Arnn.
Fred Arnn for the record. I've heard an awful lot of what ifs, you know, making money for the Fair Board and the number of people that are going to be camping there. And I think the last time I spoke about this, I asked if anyone had done a business plan. So I'll give you a what if. What if you don't have enough campers to cover the cost? Taxpayers are still paying on the grant, and we're not achieving the attendance that we expected, and we decide we want to build a justice center. So we're going to wind up by having to pay back the loan in a lump sum. We haven't achieved our attendance projections. We have no business plan to be able to base any of this on. It's simply opinion. So my question is I understand requesting an extension. Perhaps that's a good idea, but maybe we should do a little more research to find out what a projection would be for the number of campers, how much money we'd make, and then what's the actual cost of running the campgrounds. I mean, that seems like common sense to me, and I haven't heard that yet.
Well, I'll touch on part of it. First of all, it's not taxpayer dollars. It's Parks and Recs grant, which comes from user fees. Your boat licensing, your RV licensing, your four-wheeler licensing, snowmobile.
Yeah, that's it.
I mean, it's all taxpayer stuff, but it's user fees, not something that you're mandated to pay, like your property tax, sales tax. So
we wouldn't be paying it back, we're just paying the maintenance costs, employee costs, and we're not meeting our projections because we overestimated how many people are going to be using it.
And I don't think that that's going to be an issue in Bonner County. Try to reserve an RV spot in Bonner County today, anytime during the summer.
Mr. Chairman, you have a hand up online.
Whiskey Rock, how are you?
Good, can you hear me?
I can.
Jeremy
Little closer
Grimm.
to the mic, though.
Jeremy Grimm, thanks so much, Commissioners. I think you just clarified it, but the previous speaker was talking about paying back a loan. It's my understanding this is a grant. Grants don't have to be paid back. Can you just confirm that? Thanks.
I'm actually going to respond to that because that is not what your statement is actually not accurate for this particular grant. But I'll read that after Ms. Cheryl goes because she popped up.
Ms. Cheryl.
Cheryl Messer for the record. This is from the jail workshop, February 14th, 2019. You had asked about how are we going to pay for a justice center? And you were there, Steve. So Commissioner Bradshaw. Dan said, even if we decide to build a new jail, it's not going to happen tomorrow. Jeff, how do we finance that? Dan, if we dump that property downtown, let's just say that we might have a buyer that's motivated, that's going to offset a bunch of the cost right there. Then Jeff talks about what happened before and how it was redesigned and cheapened down, and then they shrunk it and cheapened it, and it finally passed, and it was terrible. And so then Dan starts talking about, well, how are we going to finance this? And he says, how about we have to start a claim and footprints. If we did, I mean, this is just pie in the sky, but if we did a whole justice facility, it would have every building that's on currently on that property enveloped into that. So we'd have the detectives in there, and the sheriff said the whole thing, the courthouse, the public defender, everything. Dan, yep, everything would be in that same building. And Dan says later, if you start talking about adding property costs, the cost of property and infrastructure to the cost of the building, he says, we already own that property. We have to think about this. We're going to try to grab a piece of property outside of the city limits currently. We already own this property. And then he says, I'd rather have that fact. No, we know how you feel, but we have some property and build it right next to you. At least we've staked we've peed on all the corners. We know it's ours.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that the current agenda item is actually an extension of an IDPR grant. I was unaware that we were speaking about expanding the courthouse or the jail.
He had brought it up.
Well, I'm just referencing the agenda item and the way that this.
We'll draw it back on topic.
Okay.
So this just got to do with the grant extension.
Okay, and he also, Dan said, everybody knows building's always cheaper than remodeling. And he said even the layout's not good in what we were going to do originally to the jail.
So Cheryl, did you not understand that we're going to keep it to the grant extension?
Well, you had asked about how can I'm talking about looking to the future.
I'm talking about the grant extension.
And should we even move
You could make an argument
We can
that
always
this
talk about that later.
You can make an argument that this has to do with a grant extension because your extension of the grant is to build the RV campground on this particular site. And so what she's presenting is can be construed as related to a grant extension because I'm assuming that she does not support grant extension to put an RV campground on that site, and that's what she's presenting.
And moving,
I
and
think
to
you
be able
could-
to do that, you have, for that extension, my understanding is you're going to also move the lot line adjustment down, the boundary line. You have to do that. for
All
that.
part of the process.
That is part of the process.
Okay, so I'm against
All
that,
right.
absolutely.
Okay.
So I have a couple of things that I want to point out with respect to this request for a grant extension. Specifically, this is a request of an extension by the Board of County Commissioners. This is not a request of the Fair Board. So when we look at Title 22, Chapter 2, County Fair Boards, when it uses the term it is referring to fair boards. It says, it shall safely keep or cause to be safely kept all monies coming into the care, custody, or possession in strict compliance with the provisions of the public depository law in this state, it shall formulate in writing and file in its office all plans adopted by it from time to time in connection with the conduct of the business of the county fair. It further goes on to say in this title that it, as in the Fair Board, shall take charge of and manage all such property as the county may have acquired or set aside for fair purposes pursuant to the provisions of Section 31-822. So what is being requested is not the plan of the Fair Board, because we don't have a plan in writing from the Fair Board. Therefore, asking for an extension for this particular grant should not move forward, because this is not the plan of the Fair Board, and the Fair Board is charged with submitting that to the Board of County Commissioners. And it is also worth noting that it is the Fair Board, not the Board of County Commissioners, that would be in charge of maintaining that piece of property if it is deemed Fair Board property. This board consistently says it's county property, therefore it's the same. It is not if you deem it Fair Board property. The control of that property moves to the Fair Board if we identify it as Fair Board property. To specifically address the gentleman from Whiskey Rock who was made a statement that we do not have to pay the grant back. That is not an accurate statement either. So when you go to look at our IDAPA 2601-350, you will see that if we don't manage the grant appropriately, that we are obligated to pay all or part of the grant back, which is also why it's important that it is the Fair Board that submits their plan to the Board of County Commissioners, not vice versa, because that's how the statute reads. Because as we keep saying, we're not going to increase government and we're not going to increase costs, where do we get the almost $500,000 to pay the grant back? Because it isn't, the way this works is the county is the one that applies for the grant. So we are on the hook for making sure we're following that process. The Fair Board won't have to pay it back because this isn't the Fair Board's plan. So it is my understanding of reading the laws that are governing the Fair Board, that govern property, that this board doesn't have the obligation to apply for a grant for the Fair Board. And we shouldn't, because the Fair Board needs to be willing to administer this grant in line with keeping of the rules that govern the grant itself. Because failure to follow that process means we all have to pay it back for a decision that is made to request. And quite frankly, there's never been an answer from this table as to who's going to pay back the $500,000. Who's going to pay the $25,000 to Sewell for the boundary line adjustment? Because it isn't the Fair Board that asked us to do this. We did this on our own. We did not budget for it. That's not how the county works. And so if you care about the state of our county, how are you throwing the money out? And when we talk about encumbered land, the land is encumbered even based on the opinions from this board, because this board has stated 2-1, the county will maintain control. That is not accurate. It clearly states the Fair Board would be in control of that piece of property. To do anything else would mean your land is encumbered. Therefore, the application of the grant extension is dishonest, because if you wrote, we intend to tear this RV campground in less than 20 years, you would not get the grant. So it's not being honestly represented to the state if you apply for that grant for that specific line. If we need an RV campground, put it on the fairground land proper. If it's that important, we would be just doing that now. We have meeting after meeting and we're not moving forward because somebody wants it on this land. But if the true issue is having the campground, somebody tell us why we can't just move forward on existing fairground land where the current board has stated that they would rather the campground be, and we're not at risk of repaying this grant.
Thank you for that opportunity. Now, speaking of dishonesty, there was a memorandum of understanding that has been signed by the Fair Board and the chairman that this board voted for in 2023. So it is a complete misrepresentation in any way, shape, or form. And in that MOU, which I could walk across the hall to get, and I'm going to call the question immediately after this, the MOU states specifically that Chairman Eddie Gordon, who is the current chairman of this Fair Board, and Chairman Steve Bradshaw signed that all grants will be administered by Bonner County. So to misrepresent and say that the Fair Board has not done so when they have signed that MOU this year is, I'm just going to leave it as it's a misrepresentation. And
I
with
think you
that,
don't understand what that document is.
I'm pretty sure I understand what the document is.
No.
And
Let's
with
start
that,
getting
I'd love
back
to
and
call the
forth. It's going to
question.
stop at this point because I'm going to go ahead and call for a roll call vote.
I actually have a question of a member of the community that I would
I
like
have
to
called for a
ask.
vote, Commissioner Williams. We're
But
done. We're done.
I can, if y'all want me to filibuster the rest of this meeting, I can do that. It'd
No,
probably
you
be
won't either,
easier.
because I'll adjourn this meeting in a heartbeat.
Then it doesn't get passed, so I win. So which one do you want to do? Thank you.
Roll call vote.
Well,
Yes.
so as stated, I have the.
Is that a
ability to
yes
talk
or no?
for long. I'm going to
You get
answer
to
the way.
vote.
I am going to vote. I'm going to vote with
I called
explanation.
for a vote, Commissioner Williams.
I heard you.
You are done.
I heard, well, that's not how it works. That's not how it
No
works.
answer for Commissioner
That,
Williams, I
no,
guess.
oh, I'm pretty sure you're breaking a law if you think you can bypass my vote.
I'm not bypassing it.
You don't get to turn to a clerk and say, no response from Commissioner Williams. I am a duly elected individual, and I will represent the people
Okay.
from my district and this county. If you'd like to adjourn the meeting and not vote on this, be my guest. I would approve for that. If y'all want to take a recess because he has to use the bathroom, go ahead and do that too. But I am not going to be shut up by you. Don't care that you're the chairman. That's not your function. So, what are we doing? Are y'all taking a recess to regroup?
You know what? No, we're in discussion. Public comment's done. I've called for a vote.
Yeah, but a commissioner
And she
can
doesn't want to
ask.
follow the rules.
Yeah, you're not following the
So,
rules because a
Where do we
commissioner
go
can
from here? You
ask.
can't give me legal advice.
A
so-
commissioner can ask for a comment from a person within the audience. I do have that right. It's in the rules.
And the chairman has the right to control the meeting,
That's
which
right.
oddly enough, I have yet to hear in a single motion in the last 4 months, but I noticed that you removed them to include today from all of the motions, which begins with Mr. Chairman. But filibuster away, Commissioner Williams.
Well, did you want your break?
No.
No, I'm still listening.
Okay, all right.
No, I'm waiting. What I would like is to respect the board, because on Friday I heard that the board was dysfunctional, but go ahead and continue that. What I would like, Commissioner Williams, is for
So
you
now you see why the
for
board
you
is
to vote.
dysfunctional.
I would like for you to vote, Commissioner.
So one of the
I'll call for a
reasons,
roll call vote.
so one of the
All
things that
discussion
happens
ends.
when Commissioner Williams
That-
votes is I make sure that I explain how I came to a decision. This recording, it can be used by members of the public to take action against this board for its decisions. The decision that I make needs to be explained to the people. Now, the two of you may choose to consistently ignore questions and not provide concrete information to the community, but that is not how I roll. So my response is, the obligation of the Fair Board is to put their plan forth to the commissioners, not vice versa. There is no law that says it is the commissioners that develop the plan for the Fair Board. In addition to that, we are risking having to repay the grant because we are not, although we are the administrators of the grant, it is the Fair Board that would have to comply. It is the Fair Board that would have to manage the RV campground. We do not have a plan from the Fair Board that says that they are going to do those things for this particular grant. So the application and extension of this grant is inappropriate by this board unless and until the current Fair Board members make a decision. And if we want to reference emails that have been given to this board from the Fair Board, the letter that we got from the chair of the Fair Board specifically requested that the commissioners not insert themselves. In fact, it said they didn't want a liaison for this very functional board that you identify based on actions of this board. So for all of those reasons, it is my vote that we do not request an extension of this grant and that everybody who is not in agreement with the grant actually contact the state and identify whether or not you agree with it, because it is the state who is going to either give the money or not give the money.
So that was a no.
I did say no in there. Yep.
Okay.
Commissioner Bradshaw.
Yes, motion passes. Okay, Commissioner Ahmed is out of the way. Ms. Williams.
Yes, so on my first action item, we need to address our issue with Waterways. We don't have a full board, and it is very important that we make a decision. In the past, this board has just made a decision that if existing members on that board wanted to be reinstated, that we would reinstate those members. So it is my request, we have received the applications of sitting members that we reinstate the members of the Waterways Board so that we can move forward with the process of, we've already noticed for Waterways volunteers, we need to actually fill the board so that they can move forward, especially as we get to summer. So I move to reinstate the members of Waterway boards that are currently requesting reinstatement.
Resolution 23-37.
Yes.
Yet again, there was an absent Mr. Chairman, but I will second the motion.
Okay, roll call vote.
Commissioner Ahmed?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Bradshaw?
Yes.
All right, my next item is on the streaming of all public meetings when appropriate. So I brought this up last week that there's a lot of times meetings are requested that can be considered legal technically because they're within the 24 hours, but it doesn't work if you're, for example, I do stuff within the community, as well as people that want to be able to actually see what takes place on meetings outside of the Tuesday meeting. But what we're doing is just requiring people to do a records request for that audio. My request was that we just stream it. Commissioner Ahmed indicated that he had spoken with our technology department who said we would have to hire new people, but that's not an accurate statement. So I reached out to members of technology, and we, for right now, actually, if you look at our elections, we're actually streaming that. It's a click of a button. So it is my request, actually, that we stream our meetings whenever possible with the same disclaimer that we're using for Zoom. It doesn't take the place of in-person, but it allows us to participate in all of the meetings, especially short set meetings. So based on the information before us, I move to approve utilization of a streaming platform for those meetings that are open to the public whenever possible, noting that there may be times when streaming is not available. Utilization is not intended to replace in-person participation as indicated in the disclaimer used for streaming Zoom.
I went downstairs this morning and again, I asked this question and I received the same response. And I will give the same response that I gave last week and the same response that I gave when I said I am not interested in growing government. I'm not interested in growing government. I am not interested in hiring another position that is out of budget. I am not interested in having yet another taxpayer expenditure. This question was asked and answered last week. I will not second this motion.
I got my answer actually in writing, and so I would like an opportunity to sway you to make a different statement. The question I asked technology downstairs was, does technology have the option to click live stream from a computer to begin the stream and click the stream off when done? If yes, can this task be shown to another person, such as a clerk? The answer from Jacob Storms, who is the director of technology, was, we do have an option to start and stop the live stream. This can be shown to someone such as the clerk. What might be more of a challenge is teaching the intended user how to manage OBS for the camera presentation. I'll argue we don't need to move any of the cameras. They're stationary, we're fine there. And how to adjust audio on the fly. If we were to pre-stage the conference session, this may be possible. It would still require us to set up a configuration. So there is no inability, there is no cost. That's a specious argument. We have all of the equipment here, and it is something that can be done remotely. If you look at elections right now, we are live streaming the elections camera from a click of a button. That is happening over in a different building. So it's possible. I would recommend, if you don't like the idea, maybe we just add a caveat in what I read to say that at no additional cost to the taxpayer, and that would suffice your
There is
concern.
no second from this, Commissioner.
So then your argument of saying it was because of a
So
cost
there
is
was a
not
motion
valid.
and no second. The motion dies, the discussion ends. It is 11:56. We will recess this meeting, come back to executive session in 5 minutes. Thank you for your participation.